So for those of you that don't know me, my name is David Williams. I've been an Allstate agent since 2009. And what I'm going to do today is I'm going to share my personal journey as an agent, right before becoming an agent, and what it looked like all the way up until today, because there was a lot of challenges, a lot of changes. We're constantly adapting, constantly changing. And I figured, my story might hit home with a handful, hopefully more people in the room that it can hopefully help. So where we began, before Allstate, I worked for an organization I'm sure most people in this room know, Circuit City. So it was actually my first job coming out of college. So my initial plan was I played college baseball. Initially in high school, I didn't have the most talent in the room, but my father taught me a lot about hard work. And even though I didn't have a lot of talent at the time, I worked my butt off. I was in the batting cages until my hands bled every single day, and I ended up making the college team. And, I attributed that to being the hardest working person in the room. I'm a firm believer that, hard work beats talent, any day of the week when talent doesn't work hard. So, that led me to, my initial plan was to play professional baseball, and obviously that didn't happen. And had to figure out what I was going to do next when I got out of college. So what I did at the time is I took a part-time position it was actually a full-time position, but it was meant to be a short stint until I figured out what I was going to do with my life and what my direction was going to be. And in a very short time, I started out in sales in the car stereo department in the road shop for Circuit City. I found out that I was a pretty good salesperson and I had a knack for sales, and I was great with people. Within a few months, I was the number one road shop salesperson in the entire country of the Circuit City organization. They saw capability in me, and I advanced to a leadership position. Shortly after that, became a store manager at Circuit City. So here I was, 21 years old, running a $20 million business, managing all these people. Had no idea what I was doing, but it was the best learning experience of my life. One thing that Circuit City had is a great training program, great leadership program, great mentor program, and I got a lot of education out of that. But about halfway through my stint with Circuit City, and I'll apologize in advance if I do get a little bit emotional. I usually don't share this in depth about my story, but I figured, if I go out and put myself on the line today, there might be somebody else in this room that can help, and it'd be worth it. Halfway through at Circuit City, I started having issues where I was having a lot of pain, my neck, my back. It began to progress, get worse and worse. So finally, one day, it got to the point where my ankles were swollen up and I couldn't walk. I was on a cane, and they couldn't figure out what was going on. So I ended up going off of work. They finally figured out that I had and diagnosed me with a form. It's almost like a rheumatoid arthritis. It's called ankylosing spondylitis. It affects your neck and spine, causes a pretty significant amount of pain. They got me on medications, got it under control as much as they could. It still didn't make the pain go away. And a lot of people might not know because I usually don't share it. I keep it tight to the vest. I try to be a real positive person. I always have a smile on. But, every day I wake up with that same pain, and I just chose to not let it affect me, not let it define who I am, but instead personally define who I am. So I came back, and one of the most difficult things is being on my feet all day. That was one of the challenges in retail that really took a toll on me. So, about a few years later, after being on my feet in retail, time after time after time, finally it took so much of a toll on me that I went off of work on disability. And I was off of work on disability a period of time with Circuit City. Finally came back, and I came back sooner than expected, sooner than I was ready for, sooner than my health was ready for, but I had a choice to make. They couldn't hold my position for any longer, and I had to just force myself to get back. So I got back and just gritted it out. They put me in an underperforming store. turned it around within a few months, had it one of the top performing in the country. But just a few months in, here I am recovering, just getting back to work. I was probably in the lowest point from a financial standpoint that I've ever been in my life because there was a lot of medical bills. I really wasn't getting paid much at the time. So my savings was pretty depleted from the situation that I had. And, basically, right at that point, a customer walked in and came up to me and said, I'm so sorry to hear about your situation. And I said, well, what situation is that? Well, they just announced Circuit City was filing Chapter 11. And I found out about it from that customer. They didn't let us know. So we turned on the news, and sure enough, we found my job, everything I knew for 10 years, my passion, my dedication, just crumbling right before me. So here I am in a rough financial situation, dealing with health issues, and now my job is gone. And I knew I needed to do something. I knew I needed to do something differently. So they gave us a 90-day notice that in 90 days they'd completely shut their doors. So I actually had a friend of the family that was an insurance agent, coincidentally with Allstate. I always had an entrepreneurial spirit. That's always been deep inside me. Real big business guy, real big sales guy. I knew I needed to do something on my own, that I could live my life on my own terms and nobody else's. Never again have somebody tell me I got to be on my feet 10 hours a day. Never again tell me what schedule I had to work. I had to create my own life on my terms. And, doctors were telling me at the time that, this is just the way it is. Most people go on long-term disability, get used to it. And that's probably what's going to happen to you. But I chose to take a different path, not listen to the naysayers, not listen to the doctors, which was difficult at the time, and chose to craft my own path. So I started talking to this individual that was a friend of the family with Allstate. Decided that was the way I was going to go. At night, while Circuit City was going under, I started getting my licenses out of the way. Still wasn't certain where I was going to go. I was talking to different companies, trying to determine, because I knew nothing about insurance, trying to determine if I wanted to go independent, if I wanted to go with State Farm. So I talked to different companies, and I finally sat down with somebody from Allstate, and the program just blew anybody else's out of the way. And the support with Allstate was something that I didn't see anywhere else. So I was completely sold on Allstate. But the problem was I just came back from a difficult situation. I had bills that I owed from a medical bill standpoint, and I didn't have any money, and you needed money to start an agency. I was down to probably my last $4,000 or $5,000 in my bank account from depleting my savings. For me, I decided this was my tipping point. I find in life that sometimes in times of uncertainty and sometimes in times of difficult change or something devastating happens to us, sometimes you just got to peel back the surface. And when you look underneath, there's opportunity. And that's really what I found. I decided I was going to create a life on my own terms. What I ended up doing next, I didn't know how I was going to cash it, but I wrote myself out a check for $1 million. And I framed it, and I put it in my house in my bedroom. So I woke up, and I looked at it every single day. Next to that check was that I eventually put in there, was my unemployment debit card that they gave me from when I got separated from, finally from Circuit City. But that was in front of me every single day. And the reason why I did it that way is I never wanted to lose sight of where I wanted to go, and I never wanted to lose sight of where I came from. And what that meant, it didn't mean money to me at the time. It wasn't about getting rich. It wasn't about just having $1 million. It was about having that tool that could change my life, that could allow me to live on my own terms, that could allow me to help other people, that could allow me to provide just an amazing life for my family, my beautiful bride back there. And because my father growing up, I had a brother that took a wrong turn in life, became an addict, alcoholic. From that moment forward, my parents wanted to make sure that the rest of their kids never, ever had an opportunity to go down that path. So what my dad did is he worked day and night to make sure he kept us busy. Even though they didn't have the money, he found it, and he found a way. He had his own business as well. He was an entrepreneur. Still has it. Put seamless aluminum gutters on houses. That was his business. So he'd get up at 5 a.m., work all day long, and he also had another business doing snow plowing. So just so he could pay for my private baseball lessons, keep me in baseball leagues. My sister was a singer, songwriter, dancer. Just to pay for all of that, he would work night and day. He would literally go out and snowplow till 4 in the morning, get back up, and go to work at 5. He would literally operate on 2 hours of sleep. And I decided that that was a motivating factor for me as well, that I wanted to take care of them. I wanted to make sure that they never worried about money again. I wanted to make sure they could enjoy the retirement because they didn't have one. And they didn't have the ability to go on trips, vacations. No, by the way, I brought them on an inner circle trip probably every year for the past 7 years now. But I found a way to leverage my current situation rather than allowing it to defeat me. So here I am, still with no money, and I got debt to pay off before they would even entertain me opening an agency. And I saw an opportunity in the midst of everything, in the midst of this chaos. I feel like the easiest thing I could have done was just give up and just listen to people. Like, okay, I can just sit home, be on disability. But I chose not to do that. And basically the opportunity I saw when Circuit City was liquidating all their merchandise, anything that was opened up out of the packaging, the liquidators pretty much looked at it like junk. They just wanted to get it out of there. It wasn't an inventory. So I noticed they started to sell $1,000 flat panel TVs for like $50. And then a light bulb went off, and I went right to the liquidators. I was like, listen, I don't want you to sell this to anybody but me. I want to negotiate a deal. So what I went around and did is I actually liquidated my 401k. I took the penalty on it at the time. Wasn't much in it. About $7,000, $8,000. I bought up all the merchandise, probably $70,000, $80,000 worth of merchandise at the time from all the stores around me, drove all the local stores within 3 hours. My wife wasn't very happy about it at the time, but she is now because our living room was literally stacked to the ceiling with Bose systems, flat panel TVs. It looked like I don't even know what it looked like, an electronics warehouse in there. But I spent the next couple of months selling everything online. I raised enough capital to pay off all my debt and have the $25,000 because that's what it was at the time, $25,000 to start a scratch agency. So define your purpose and your why. I want to talk a little bit about that because had I not had a purpose, had I not had a why that was just so powerful and I was so passionate about, I would not be standing here today. Because what I did, I mean, it really wasn't, for me, at the end of the day, it wasn't about money. It was, my why was my wife, my family, my father, my health, just creating a life on my own terms. And I wholeheartedly believe that everything you do must stem from your why and must stem from your purpose. And a lot of times I feel it's the reason why I want to talk about this because it's real easy to lose sight of that. Like if we were to survey everybody in this room, and everyone would probably say you know what your purpose is, you know what your why is. But a lot of times when we go into our agencies and the fire hose gets turned on and there's a million things just flying at us every single day, it's really easy to get caught up in the day-to-day and lose sight of your why and lose sight of your purpose. So that's why it's important to me to make sure that I have that in front of me every single day. Every year, I personally set new goals for myself of where I want to be, what I want to accomplish. And I write down daily goals, and at night I reflect what I accomplished during the day. Did that tie back into my long-term purpose, and did that tie back into my goals? And I feel by keeping that in front of me day to day to day, never lose sight of that, just the action of writing it down. What are the 3 things I'm going to do today that's going to help me, live my purpose and get to my goals? I believe that's really significant. It's a real big part of our success. Every quarter, what we actually do with our team is we have our team at the office update vision boards, because we found the same thing with our staff. Our staff really needed to, really talking about making more money, getting the next sale to get another, $300-400 commission. That wasn't working as a motivational factor. And eventually, a light bulb came off that I needed to do the same exact thing with my team. I needed to put in front of them their why and their purpose, make sure that they understood it and they looked at it every single day. So in our agency, everybody has a frame on their desk or somewhere in their office that has, from a personal standpoint, financial standpoint, and a career goal of where they want to be in the long term and where they want to be in the short term. And we encourage our team to write down their goals and review their wins and losses daily so that we're always helping them get to the next step. At the beginning of the year, we asked everybody in the office, we made sure that I personally and our leadership team personally understood every person in the agency's goals. So whether it's not even business related, but it may be outside of work, what they want to do. They want to buy a new house, or they want to buy something. They want to put a child through college, whatever it may be. We make sure that we support that and we help them get to the end of that tunnel. So I think it's very important to, if you haven't written down, actually gone through the exercise of writing down your why and your purpose in every single aspect, to do that. And if you've done it, make sure that is in front of you every day. And every action you take in your agency, outside your agency, at the end of the day, did you get 1 inch closer to your goals, your purpose, and your why? So here we are, startup day 1 in our scratch agency. And I really wanted to share this because I think it was really relative to a lot of people that are in the business tenure now, but also just starting. And again, starting up an agency day 1, it's tough to learn. It's tough to focus on, anything, advancing your agency forward, besides coming to, an event like this, which is amazing, where you can just be taken out of your element and, level up as a leader. But it's real easy for the distractions to hit you, and especially starting a scratch agency. Anybody that's done it, that revenue is king. Like, you have to sell. If you don't sell, you're not going to survive. And by the time I opened my agency, I took a look at it in my bank account, and I looked at it in a perspective of how many months I had before I was going to go out of business if I didn't sell something. And by the time I paid upfront expenses, getting everything started, and we tried to run really lean, so all of our furniture was literally like $50 desks, all the office supplies I got from Circuit City. So we ran it really lean, but even, after that, probably had about $14,000, $15,000 left in the account. And I calculated how many months I could go before I went out of business. And that was my motivating factor every single day. I acted as if somebody was trying to take away everything that I was trying to get 24 hours a day. And that mentality drove us to early success. I remember when our trainer came in the first day, and they talked about how the first couple weeks, we were going to focus on training and then get to the sales part. And I told them, I was like, no, we're going to do things a little bit differently here. My first location was actually in Grease Ridge Mall, across from a DMV in a shopping mall. So on day 1, I told the trainer that I didn't know anything about insurance. I didn't know anything about the systems. We had All-Star back then, that I wanted to learn while we were trying to sell, because I needed to generate revenue. I needed to pay the bills. I needed to pay the staff. The staff I had 2 staff members that also lost their job at Circuit City that I brought on. And that's exactly what we did. I stood out there personally pulling people out of the DMV line And our first customer is still with us to this day. It took me 4 hours to sign him up. So he was patient too. He sat in there. He understood. He was a champion, and he's still with us to this day. Geraldo Hernandez signed up his motorcycle, all his toys, his home, his bikes. But I just pulled him into the office, and I told the trainer, I'm like, tell me how to do this. And we figured it out while we were generating revenue. And I made sure every single action that I took, I asked myself, is this generating revenue for my agency? Is this helping the customer experience? And if the answer was no to that, I didn't focus on it. I only focused on the controllables that created revenue for our agency that allowed us to move forward. And in turn, doing that, we had a real small office, like 700 square foot office. The greatest thing about it, I was my own best salesperson at first. And I think that's pretty important. In the beginning, I found that it was actually a necessary requirement of actually getting in the trenches from day one. And I did that probably the first 2 years of being in business. Actually, we're in the trenches, on the ground, living and breathing sales with my sales team. And by doing that, that was the best form of training and the best coaching I could have ever done, because when they saw me hustling night and day, it was pretty difficult for them sitting right next to me not to hustle night and day alongside me. And our first month, I think we did like 72 items. We quickly ramped that up. I think in month 3, we hit Century Club, hitting 100 items, and continued to scale the business, just making sure that we only focused on the controllables and things that were important, that created revenue in our agency and took care of our customers. So growth and expansion, going from where we were to where we are today. We came a long way. So after our first agency, we probably grew it to about $2 million in size, scratch. I decided now I knew what I was doing. Now I had things figured out. I also, within those first couple of years there, I became obsessed. I became obsessed with success. I became obsessed with my goals. I kept looking at that check. I had a time clock on that $1 million check to hit it by the age of 35. And it just kept my goals in front of me. So we started another scratch agency. At this time, I wanted room to grow. Our first location was pretty tight. We were like packed in there like sardines. We made these like little 3-foot cubicles because we really didn't have much office space, and we were just all packed in there together. So I found an abandoned building. We got it for a great deal, renovated it out. My father did a lot of the work for us, renovating the building, and it was a 6,000 square foot building. I wanted something I could expand in, something I could grow. So we did a second scratch contract, started with 10 LSPs this time. And we grew about double the rate we did in the first one. After that, we decided to do another scratch contract because I figured it out even more. Because again, I was just staying up night and day at that point, figuring out what's getting in the way of my team. How can I free up more resources? How can I support them to be more successful and hit their goals and take the agency to the next level? So we did that, and we did end up eventually acquiring one book of business. So between my wife's location and in my 4 locations, we have 5 locations total, up to $18.5 million in premium. We've achieved honoring 8 years straight out of every year that we've been in business. We've hit Circle of Champions or Inner Circle 7 out of the 8 years we've been in business. National Conference, one of them. And combined between all of our locations, when you add up the results between our satellites, we ended up ranking in our region #1 in auto, home, business, and SPL. And we recently, which I'll get into a little bit later, ended up finishing top 3 in Allstate benefits. So agency infrastructure, what that looks like. So you heard my story, how I started, it was just me, a couple LSPs, and to where we are today. It's been a really great learning experience. I found to always be learning and always searching for knowledge was another key factor of our success. Always trying to, not reinventing the wheel, but figuring out who's really doing it differently, who's really getting it done, like the Craig Wiggins of the world that are out there. And I became obsessed with who was really knocking it out of the park and trying to figure out, what they were doing that allowed us to build our agency and scale our agency to where it is today. Today we have 20 team members. We're specialized. We have 6 solely personalized lines team members. We have 2 team members that do Allstate workplace benefits, 3 CSRs, and 1 sales director, 1 dedicated commercial specialist, 2 sales support, an in-house EFS, 3 P&C team leads, 1 workplace benefit and life team lead, and again, 5 locations and 1 main hub. And I'll explain a little bit about how our operation really works. It took us a while to figure out what was most effective that was going to get us the highest level of results and productivity and highest level of engagement in the agency. So what we eventually came up with is the structure that we have today. We actually have our senior team members that have been with us the longest that moved up to supervisors. There's 4 in total that aspire to be agency owners one day. We actually put them on development plans to get there. Some of them may be a year out, some of them 3 years out, some of them longer, depending where they're at. But we gave them the opportunity because I found that I couldn't do it all myself. My assistant manager couldn't do it all myself, leading all these people, that we really needed to align my personal goals and the agency's personal goals with our staff and help them get to where they want to be. So far, we've spun off about 4 individuals to become agency owners. But we basically gave all of our team leads a mock $2.5 million book, and we treat them as if they're running an agency today. We essentially told them the price of admission to be in this role is I never want to talk about the basics with you. I never want to talk about quotes. I never want to talk about minimum sales results. That's the price of admission to be in here. And I never want to talk about activity. I want to be able to talk to you on the level of a peer for if you're going to be in this seat to help you advance. And we treat them that way. We have weekly leadership meetings every single week where our team leads they have to come prepared with a SWOT analysis to talk about what the results were for the week, and what their opportunities for, and what they're going to do differently to either continue the success or work on their opportunities into the next week. They each have 2 to 3 team members underneath them that they're responsible for coaching, mentoring, and helping get to the next level themselves, just as if they're an agency owner today. They have P&C goals as if they're running a $2.5 million book. They have ALR goals as if they're running a $2.5 million book. And we talk to them at that level, and really by putting this together, the magic that happened, I all of a sudden across my agency saw 4 to 5 mini-me's out there, and things started to become, I don't want to use the word easy, but it did become easier, and I could focus on bigger picture. I could focus on even taking it further to the next level by having highly capable, trained people underneath me that align their goals with mine, and we're all running towards the same target. We have a dedicated commercial specialist. We finished top in commercial. The game changer there was having a dedicated commercial specialist. We found out that somebody really couldn't do it just part-time, winging it. So we have somebody dedicated that does nothing but that. Something I'm going to get into a little bit later in the slides, but we found that as our operation expanded and got bigger and bigger and bigger, so did our ALR goal. And I'm sure there's a lot of people in this room that experience that same pain, that every year that goal gets bigger and bigger, and we know it's not going away. And a lot of times you get a lot of great things going on in your agency, but that seems to be the common theme, where that's the almost Achilles heel in most operations. And that was the case with us 7 out of the 8 years that we were in business. And we just found we had to take ownership of it. We had to take ownership of it ourselves, and we implemented a dedicated life and workplace specialist team in our agency that we could manage, and we were in control of the results. We also got our own in-house EFS that's dedicated to our agency. A lot of you might know Joseph Noah. He actually came down, we were doing some consulting work together for a period of time, helping train our staff, and we worked together so well. He permanently moved up to be a part of our operation and now have a dedicated in-house EFS. Lastly, we have a sales director position in our agency, and that's been, as we grew and as we expanded, that has been pivotal. That has been so fundamental to the business. Basically, what he does all day long is just keeps everybody on track with their goals. Keeps everybody, so what it looks like from everybody comes in our operation at 9 o'clock every single day and they train. We're on CWC, and they'll train, maybe watch 2 to 3 videos. After those videos are done, they meet with my sales director to host a morning meeting. They talk about what they learned, how they can implement that into their process for the day to get better. At 1 o'clock, our entire operation, they all go to lunch on the sales side, come back at 2, and we have another meeting where we train again. If you notice, there's a theme here with training and coaching. They'll all watch maybe 2 to 3 videos again, get back for another meeting, and that's where my sales director basically does a pulse check on the day. He celebrates early successes if we're on track, motivates, rallies the team. If we're not on track, really is transparent about what's getting in the way. Is it, Johnny doesn't have any talk time, he's not doing quotes, maybe he's focused on something that's not sales related. He's focused on the uncontrollables, and he keeps them on track. He's constantly lapping the floor, engaged with the team, making sure that they're focused on what's most important, and that's getting to their daily goals, which is going to take them to their weekly goals and take them to their monthly goals. But that was a game changer for us, having that position in place, somebody solely dedicated to the success of our team members, that roles plays with them, that coaches them, and it's just constant support on the floor, making sure everybody is doing what they do. Similar to a hitting coach for baseball, making sure everybody has the right fundamentals in place. So agency marketing and lead management. So everybody might be asking, so what do you do to maybe hit your results? And what does that look like? I can tell you in the beginning, we were known as the kings of internet leads. That's all we did, is we spent thousands of dollars on internet leads, got into the live transfer game, and then started doing telemarketing, had our own dedicated telemarketing team, about 10 to 12 individuals at any given point in time. What allowed me to do that is the cash flow of having a scratch contract, and I was always used to having a scratch contract and another scratch contract and another scratch contract. So I really didn't look at my business any other way than on the cash flow of an ADB model. Well, eventually that ship had sailed, and they changed things up where they went on a stint where they weren't allowing those opportunities. So I finally got down to the end of my last scratch contract and realized that the budget didn't work anymore. The cash flow didn't flow anymore. We were maybe overstaffed. We had too many resources. We were spending too much on marketing, and we were going in the red every single month. And that's when I realized we had to make some very big changes. We realized that we cut our telemarketing team down to 2 individuals from the 12. And on our telemarketing team, that's pretty much that's our bullpen. So we still always have a couple telemarketers or assistants, because that's the bullpen to develop our next best CSR, to develop our next best LSP salesperson. So we were forced to downsize that. And we also had to take a look at our sales team. We could no longer employ 20 individuals. So something I should have done a long time ago, looking at my operation, there was this people there that I liked a lot. I liked them as individuals. They're part of the family, but they weren't contributing enough to the cause. There was constant low performance, and it was dragging down the rest of the team. So we had, 20 sales producers, ended up going down to a total of 12 at that time, and rolled it out to the team that now everybody's marketing on their own. We have to change in order to survive. We can no longer afford to operate this way, just throwing cash out the window, because we do not have this ADV model anymore. So naturally, the next 2 months, we had probably the lowest sales months we've ever had before. There was resistance because they're used to having warm leads transferred to them constantly. They're used to having a pipeline set up for them where all they had to do was quote. So we transitioned to them making the outbound calls. In December of, to give you a comparison, December of 2016, we did about 500 items, but those were 20 producers, about 10 telemarketers, and I spent a boatload on leads. I still had some cash flow going to my ADB. This past year, we did about 620 items. That was with 12 total sales reps that we had, only 2 telemarketers, and I spent $0 on marketing in the month of December, and it was the best month I ever had. Like, average items per staff was the best month I ever had. We just went back to, grassroots. Going after, we're in business for 8 years now, had a huge pipeline to work. So we had them all working monolines, win-backs, requotes, and that's pretty much all we did all month. After those 2 months of transitioning, I think everybody realized that that was not going away. And what we realized is everybody could work a lot harder than they could, and everybody had a lot more capacity than we thought we could. And what we thought was impossible at the time, still being able to put up the numbers that we were putting up, because we thought that faucet was just going to shut off, not being able to have the marketing budget that we had, actually was the exact opposite. The average, by having our producers in control of what they're doing every single day, the average premiums are even higher than they've ever won. So now what we do is, we still do marketing, but we try to keep it, when it comes to leads, things of that nature, within the budget and the realm of our EA dollars, and everything else internally is self-generated. Trying to set up centers of influences that really drive our operation. And then in turn with that, all along, we've always made sure we had a robust CRM system, because I think that's really important, really critical to make sure that you're always following up. And I found that in our own agency, any employee that we ever hired, and any agency I've ever been to, that's always been a thing that's lacked luster. It's real easy to get caught up into the quote after quote on the phone, and then all of a sudden 3, 4, 5 days go by where the proper follow-up's not done, and all that hard work and effort we put forth trying to be an advisor, educating the customer, differentiating ourselves, just goes out the window because we don't follow up. So we always make sure we have a really effective lead management system in place to manage that process, and making sure that our reps are always following up and doing so, even in a creative way, to stand out and differentiate themselves across our competitors. The next thing I want to talk about, I think, is one of the most important things in running a business, and I found out later in my career that is agency culture. So I always felt that we ran a great operation, but even though we were putting up results, I felt at times I was flying by the seat of my pants at times. Like I was always chasing the business instead of running the business. And really what I found that attributed to is that we didn't have non-negotiables in place. I'm talking about non-negotiables, like in writing, set in stone. You do not cross this line. We do not deviate from this ever. You can't work in my agency. We allowed people, just because we like them or they're tenured, to achieve mediocre results. We allowed people at times to be negative and didn't really see the impact on our business, how that brought their peers down and others down in the agency, and realized that needed to change. So we had an all-office meeting, and we told them that, in order to get to the next level, we have to have a game-changing culture, like an earth-shattering culture like no other. And part of that, there has to be some non-negotiables. So we set minimum expectations as far as from a performance standpoint, sales standpoint, number standpoint, that have to be done every single day, no matter what. One thing that was really important that we came up with is PMA, we realized the attitude and the mindset of our team was everything. Having them focused on their purpose, having them focused on their why, and motivated with energy and positive about whatever it does is going to get past the excuses. Oh, by the way, that's one of our non-negotiables, no excuses. Nobody's allowed to come to us with excuses, solutions only. Our door's open to come to us at any time, but they better be coming with solutions rather than excuses, because I believe that's what builds champions. Winners always find a way. But with PMA, anybody that's been to our office or seen pictures of our office, we got signs everywhere that say no negativity allowed, and we mean that. At any given point in time, we take it very seriously if there's an issue and somebody's deliberately spreading negativity in our culture that could affect one of our senior, veteran employees, or maybe even a new impressionable new hire. All of a sudden they hear and resonate with this negativity and all of a sudden find that that's the path of least resistance. It's a lot easier to gravitate to excuses rather than negativity. So we had to cut that out of our culture. It's actually first time is a final write-up that it happens. And, if it continues where somebody's negative and poisoning our culture, it's a terminal offense because we just can't afford to compromise our culture. Another one is living with integrity, making sure that everybody is living with integrity with everything that they do, because it's never worth 1 policy, 10 policy to do the wrong thing. So they know they have to live with integrity with everything that they do. Again, creating solutions, never making excuses, and always being present. What I mean by that is not if they're scheduled at 9 o'clock, just coming in punctual at 9, but I'm talking about being present, because it's real easy to let outside external factors affect us or not get a good night's sleep, and all of a sudden they roll into work and they're there on time, but they're not actually present. The customers can hear it on the phone. The prospects can hear it on the phone. Their energy is down. They're demotivated, whatever the cause may be. And we require everybody to come in sharp and be present and engaged at all times. Another one of our non-negotiables is to be coachable and train daily. At first, when we implemented a training culture, we had resistance with that because we trained, but we didn't train at the level that we do today. And we made that a non-negotiable that in order for you to get to your goals, you got to train every day. The best of the best train every day. If you look at Major League Baseball, every Major League Baseball player has a hitting coach to keep them on track and to get them better and better at what they do. So we made it a non-negotiable to train every single day. We train in the morning, we train in the afternoon, we do role plays throughout the day, we do scorecards where we score people's calls to give them feedback so they get better and better and better. And lastly, shadow of a leader. And that's us. I learned a long time. I actually picked up this principle at Circuit City. They taught us shadow of a leader. You can go out there and tell your team and demand your team that they need to do something. But I don't care what they do. If you're not doing it, more than likely they're not going to follow suit. You could have all these big goals. You could have all these aspirations. You could put it in front of your team that you need to do this, this, and this. But if you're not willing to be in the trenches, you're not willing to do what it takes, you're not willing to do those same actions, that's the shadow you cast every day. If you come into work and you allow maybe your outside external factors affect you, affect your mindset, or let the rates affect you, let the whatever may be going on. Maybe you got a boatload of calls of customers canceling and Accord forms that day. If you wear that on your face, I guarantee you, if you look back, you're going to see a reflection of yourself. You're going to see a shadow of yourself across your agency. So no matter what, I make sure to come in, and I'm the tone setter, and I make sure that I'm casting the right shadow in my agency for my team, because I found that was everything. And that's a non-negotiable for all of our leadership in there, that they will get pulled out of a leadership role if they're not leading by example and they're not casting the right shadow that supports our culture within our agency. So lastly, overcoming the odds. So as we shifted our model, it was just constantly changing and changing and evolving and changing. 2017, we had one of our toughest years we ever had ahead of us. We had a $150,000 combined ALR goal. Our scratch agency, that was year 3 at the time, we had grown to maybe $4.5 million, but we still had a 38% growth goal on that. It was combined between all of our offices, about a 500-item combined monthly P&C goal. Started November, behind, not on pace, and $110,000 short on our ALR goal. It was honestly, I'm not one to give up, but it came across my mind that we weren't going to hit it in all our agencies, and we might have to wait till next year. Something sparked in me towards the end of November and made a conscious decision that we were going to make what appeared to be the impossible at the time possible. We rallied the team together, and this is where true teamwork and family comes in. Told them what was at stake. We had a lot of P&C business to write, a lot of ALR to write at the end of November and December. And everybody came together and committed as a family that we're going to work every single day, and we're going to work 6 days a week, all through November, through December, to get this done as a team. And we made sure to put a reward at the end for helping us get there. What we ended up doing, we hit our P&C goal. Everybody did it. In December, we had the absolute highest items per producer we ever had. Everybody was laser focused every day. And then on the ALR side, realized we had to do something quick. So we quickly started learning Allstate benefits. Started working with an enroller that wasn't getting the results that we wanted, but it came back to we weren't in control again. We were putting our destiny in somebody else's hands, and they were in control in it, not getting the results. So I ripped that Band-Aid off real quick, and I became my own best advocate. I went out there going door to door with my team, and I figured it out alongside my team in the trenches. With some skill and a little bit of luck, we pulled it off. We formed our own benefits team literally in the last month of the year, becoming a PBA this year. Formed our own benefits team, started door knocking. Luckily, we came across a McDonald's chain in Case. We closed it. We sat with 90 employees. We had close to a 92% close rate, and we averaged about $1,200 in production per employee. And that big number that we had, 110,000, we knocked that out with very, very minimal control business, just all new business benefits. And that was where a light bulb went off for me that we're going to take, going into 2018, we're going to set huge goals. We're going to take this into our own hands. We're going to control our own destiny. We're not just going to hit our number. We're going for $500,000 in financial production credit. This year, minimum, is our goal between life and Allstate benefits. Lastly, it all starts with you. It all starts with us. It starts with me. It's what is, again, going back to the shadow of a leader, what is the shadow you're casting every day? What are the expectations that you're leaving every day? What kind of training and support are you giving your team daily? Are you just giving them a goal and a message? Hey, we need you to write 5 items today, or we need you to write 40 items this month, and leaving it at that? Or are you in the trenches with them every day? Are you coming in with your game face on every single day? No compromises, no limits. And do you have non-negotiables in your agency that take you to the next level, that take you to your vision, that take you to your goals, that tie to your why, that tie to your purpose, and not let anybody hold you hostage in your own agency? It all starts with every single one of you. There's nothing special about me standing up here today. Every single one of you in this room can do the exact same thing. And really, I'll end it and leave it with it just starts with you. It starts with us. But thank you. I appreciate the time up here. Allow me to share my story. And
great job. Great job, Dave. Let's have a little conversation, though. Let's talk about a couple things. Because everybody here is not, or a lot of people here are not $19 million in premium, right? So,
absolutely.
What would you say? I took a lot of notes. Awesome job, by the way.
Thank you.
You got a great story. Unbelievable story. Someone that's trying to get to that, let's say they're $2 or $3 or $5 million now. What's the best advice you could give them to get to that next level? If they're trying to get to 15 or 20, that's their eventual goal, but they're just trying to get over that hump. When you think back at that time when you were scratch and you were approaching that level, what would you think would be the best advice you'd give somebody at that point in time?
I would say really the best advice when it comes to that is focus on the controllables. I mean, that's what I see too often, all across Allstate. We even experience it ourselves in the agency. I'll experience it myself time to time. Our staff will experience it. There's just so many different things we have coming at us every single day. Like, how many of you came into your office at 9 and then blinked and it's 6 o'clock or 7 o'clock and the day's over? And then you ask yourself, well, what would I get done? But then all of a sudden that happens again the next day, and it happens again the next day, and the next day. And they say it takes 21 days to build a culture and 3 days to break it. But what kind of culture are you building in the agency? If you do that for 21 days, I can assure you focusing on the wrong things can become a culture as well. Culture is not just positive, it can be negative. So by allowing your culture to deviate that way, it also said, getting back to shadow of a leader, the message that it sends to your staff when you're focused on all the wrong things. I can pretty much guarantee in every scenario I've seen where the agency owners maybe not focusing on the things that's helping them get to their goal sooner than later, helping them grow their business, the support staff's not focusing on those right things too. So really coming in with a discipline that no matter what, I'm going to get something done today, even if it's probably not going to happen overnight. It's not going to happen in a month, may not happen in a year, but are you moving the inches? Are you moving an inch every single day forward? So every day you're at least moving forward, because over time, inches add in the feet turn into yards, and then those yards turn into Super Bowl wins. So that's what's really going to take, I would say, for anybody that's looking at it, is really take a look at what you focus on day to day in your culture and the shadow you're casting.
What about your mistakes? What do you think, especially early on, what do you think was the biggest mistake you made that if you could go back and do it over again, you would do it over?
I'd say the biggest mistake I made early on is probably not being part of something like this really early on, was probably not introducing myself to you early on. A lot of it was just myself operating on my own in the trenches, taking what I learned from, my sales experience, my leadership experience from Circuit City, and just kind of grinding and making it happen. And it took me to a midpoint even longer in my career before I really started, reaching out and networking with some extremely, talented people out there like, Craig and Laura and Tom Bianco. There's so many of you out here. I probably couldn't recite all of your names, but that was a game changer for me because I really got to see how some of the best in the business are doing it and getting it done. And it was no longer recreating the wheel, but it was figuring out what other people are doing to win. And just by being in a winning atmosphere, just by being in a learning atmosphere like this, a lot of times it's not even, I take a lot away from the message, but it just gives you a chance to disconnect from the agency and think and be creative and come up with ideas on how to move your business forward. So again, you're working on your business instead of being in it and having it run you.
Yeah, I second that. I think, the people you hang around, it makes such a huge difference in the way you think and the decisions you make. And being around people like Dave, that definitely has helped us a lot. Let's talk a little bit about the benefits. You said you did a lot last year to finish that up. I know a lot of people are thinking about that. I think it's a great way to drive production credit, especially when you're in a pretty big hole.
Absolutely.
Right? So let's talk a little bit about how did you get started with that? What is that? You don't have to go through the whole thing, but just a couple of minutes on that process.
Well, I know we had all met in the group, and we were talking about, we're sharing best practices. A group of us got together of, how to change some things in our business, how to implement certain things, but also address some of our opportunities. And, I plan on going into it with, everybody having the answers for ALR, but realized quickly that was the Achilles heel across the country. So we had a lot of dialogue around ALR. Craig was really winning with benefits. And I just realized at that point, I need to own it. We got to try to get benefits going. So we got back to the agency. We immediately started looking into it, started working with a local enroller, started putting it in their hands. But again, I think everybody can agree and attest, a lot of times when you put your destiny in somebody else's hands, they're not going to take the same care of it and diligence that you do. And the clock was ticking. We had a lot to do in a short period of time. So we went month and a half, weren't seeing the results, out of our partners just doing our own, just dishing up leads to them. And I decided at that point I had to do what I did with everything else and just own it and just confront what it was I'll be honest, I'll be transparent. It was uncomfortable at the time. I knew nothing about benefits, nothing about going door to door, meeting business owners, talking about business owner benefits. But the same way I jumped in with my agency and just started hitting the phone on day one and focused on what was most important, I just got back to basics. I'm like, I got to do what I did when I first started my business, because this is really like starting a new business, and I need to get in there with my team and just get results. And we almost did we made it fun, and we did an apprentice exercise where we broke up into teams, kind of like Celebrity Apprentice. We all went out there for an entire day and just beat the pavement, and we did a contest for our team. Whoever could come up with the most appointments. And the great thing about it is everybody failed so many times. But through all those failures became eventually results. Eventually one of our who's now our workplace benefits team lead, she engaged with a HR manager in a McDonald's chain. They had 500 employees, 100-something of them eligible, and landed that case and got to sit with 90 of the employees, which, a part of that success too that I found was, again, taking control of it. I wanted to do things differently than maybe even an average enroller did. And I quickly learned and figured out the business. And one of the things that I found was setting expectations with the business owner. So I was transparent with the owner. I said, the only way this is going to work, the only way we can do this is if you let me see every one of your employees. Because consciously, as an advisor, I cannot go into this with goodwill if you're not going to allow us to at least touch. We're not going to pressure anybody, but at least touch and explain what we have to offer to every employee. Because you have so many employees, it's not a matter of what if, it's a matter of when and who that something's going to happen. So somebody's going to become ill, that somebody may get injured. And if we don't at least get the face-to-face opportunity to offer these benefits to your staff, so when that does happen, they have protection. I can't consciously move forward, and I'm sure you agree with me as a business owner. You want what's best for your team. Broke it down to them real simple. Your average person here maybe makes $12 an hour. We just need 20 minutes of time. It's $4. $4 per employee across 100 employees is going to cost you $400. But wouldn't you say that's a great investment to make sure your team is really taken care of and making sure that, that's going to increase employee retention. That's going to, lower workers' comp. So we completely sold on that. And then when we sat down with the employees, we came in there, presented each product, and ended up, again, about 1,200 in production, per employees, offering higher level, higher tiered products.
Yeah, benefits are the ticket, guys. I mean, we did a lot of it last year. I think we ended up with about $200,000 in benefits, and it's really not that hard. You just have to get out there and talk to people,
Absolutely.
And get those appointments and go have conversations. And, everybody's trying to beat their head against the wall, writing, life insurance and annuities and rollovers and all that, which we got to write the life apps. We got to do a better job of insuring more people and taking care of more lives. But if you're trying to knock out big chunks of production credit, benefits, you definitely need to get involved in that and start thinking about the people that you know. There's a lot of people you have relationships with right now. You pull your phone out, you could probably find $100,000 in production credit and benefits just from the people you got in your Rolodex right now.
Absolutely.
Right? So, look, I love your story. We got a couple mics up here. We've got time for some questions. If anybody's got any questions for Dave, this guy, he's in a true American success story. You got some questions, I would definitely bring them forward. Go right ahead.
Yeah, so, Dave, my question is, where do you find you've got 20 staff members, where do you find your people? And I'm talking about the people like Beth or Stephanie, that, and what part of that is, they come in at 3 stars and you train them to 5 stars? I don't know if you kind of understand my question.
So one of the things we typically do, there's exceptions to the rule, I would say, but we typically try to hire outside the insurance industry because we found that more times than not, somebody might be coming from somewhere where the expectations were way lower than ours. So their personal goal with us might have been their agency goal, and they just come in with the mindset that it's impossible, right from the beginning. So we try to bring people from similar environments. Coming from Circuit City, what I did in the beginning is I already knew that electronic stores in the computer department, the TV department, those are our highest gross margin areas. That's where they put their best employees. And then some of their supervisors are their best salespeople, and they didn't compensate them well. So I'd go out, direct recruit, act as if I was shopping, find somebody that gave me a good experience, and then offer them a career. And then honestly, a lot of people too is, they started as telemarketers for us. That's the one thing that I'm passionate about in this business is the ability to help people, develop people. There was so many people that started with us that were delivering pizzas, that were working in a hamburger place, came on, started telemarketing for us, and that's kind of our bullpen. Because I made so many bad hiring decisions in the beginning where you thought somebody was good, they interviewed well, and then you got them licensed, invested with them, and they just didn't work out. Well, this year, when they come on in a sales support role like that, we get a snapshot of their work ethic. We see if they're capable. And once they prove themselves within that 60, 90 days, we give them the ability to get their license. So a lot of them came from that. And now, since we built up our team, a lot of it has been from referrals internally. We get some of our best people. I think everybody in our office is our friends in some way, shape, or form that referred each other in, and they work really tight-knit, close together. But we found every time a higher performing individual on our team refers somebody in, birds of a feather flock together. They refer somebody in that's almost equal performer as them.
Hey, Dave, how are you?
Good, how are you?
Good. I just wanted to ask, things are going really well in your agency, but you think, well, we're not doing as well as we can. How do you do the transition to completely change the culture, but, you're worried that I'm going to change this, I'm doing really well, I don't want to, lose what I have. How do you, start to change that, and you're not performing up to what you think is your potential, but you're doing really well
Absolutely.
Right now?
Been there many times. We were just there recently. I found there's not a magic bullet. I think a lot of times when we go to change our operations, it's real easy to look for the magic bullet. But the answer I've always found every single time is it looks a lot like hard work and taking it one day at a time. One day at a time, are you slowly evolving and moving that culture to where you want it to be, to where your vision is? And, do you have it to the point where you have non-negotiables? Are you ready? Because this was tough for me internally, too. When I put those non-negotiables in place, I knew I had to fire some good people that I cared about that weren't going to be able to live up to them, that stopped me and scared me from putting those non-negotiables in the first place. In a sense, I was being held hostage in a way to getting to my true potential, I felt. And we put those non-negotiables in place, and we had some people that couldn't live up to them. We parted on great terms. They still help us in all our community events every year, but it just couldn't adapt to the culture. So we had to draw a line in the sand and just say that this is how it's going to be. These are our laser clear expectations that we're going to teach you to the level of understanding. And once we know you understand it, and I can look myself in the mirror that I've done everything that I can do, if you don't want to change, you don't want to adapt, you just can't be on my team.
And let me piggyback on that before we take the next question. Dave's done a great job with that. I think that's probably one reason why he's so successful. He's not afraid to adapt and make changes, and that's sometimes the hardest thing to do, when you're trying to fix something that's not broken. But that's a lot of times when you definitely need to make those changes. And I think the non-negotiables are key. And when you're dealing with people, especially people you care about, it makes it even harder. But that stuff's got to get done, no doubt about it. Let's go to Linda. We'll go on this side and we'll come back.
Hi. Linda Dahlmeyer from California, and I'm also trying to work on some benefits, and I've uncovered a large case, and I've been working on it for a couple of years to have wholesale come in, Allstate wholesale come in to the equation, and I wanted to know how you deal with that, and if there's a better way to approach a situation. It looks like I'll end up on it just because of my local connection if we're chosen, because also Hub International is now involved. So I'm working really hard to keep it, but how do you deal with that?
Absolutely, it's great. Well, I'll tell you one thing, we're still early on into the process. We've had, some experience with wholesale, but I think it gets back to, I found anytime I put it all in somebody else's hands, the control, that I don't always get the full desired outcome that I'm looking for. And I would say you're probably a very talented individual, and there's nobody out there in your region that's as talented as you are. And I think the success in that case would probably pivot on how well you're involved in that and deeply ingrained, solidifying that relationship, and don't be afraid to guide it, where it needs to go. If they're trying to take it one direction, and you just know in your gut and in your heart that it needs to go this way to be successful, trust and rely on that, because I would say that's what's going to take you to where your goal is.
And then on that, you mentioned that you trained and you did the hands-on. Did you find a better way to train your staff or learn about it yourself before you hit the ground?
It was messy, honestly. It was just like fumbling. So we had no idea. People were scared. They were talking about it. Like at first when they were talking on the phone, they knew nothing about these products. They were tripping over their words. So that's why I recognized the training opportunity. And as one of the best trainers and coaches in my agency, I knew that I had to train my trainers, but I didn't know about it. So that's where I realized I had to just stop everything I was doing. I had to jump in, become great at it, be able to actually go out there, get the result myself, and then I could effectively teach and train my team at that point and then hold them accountable to it.
And
I hope you guys are hearing what he's saying with that. I mean, there's so many people that they try to delegate that work, and they want someone else to go out and do the hard work. He's doing the hard work, and he's not afraid to jump into the deep end of the pool, and that's where all this stuff happens. So
it ends up
you got to do that.
Yeah, temporary pain for long-term gain. I look at it as it might be painful, it might be uncomfortable for it, but it's a short period of time, and it's a small price to pay rather than having this goal, because it did to me. It kept me up. My wife will tell you, Lauren in the back, it kept me up so many nights where I got to the end of the year, and it was just controlling me, controlling my business, stressing me out. Like there's no – I just drew a line in the sand that I cannot live like this. I can't operate like this. I need to be in full control of every aspect of my business.
And do you work with any independent agents with your Allstate benefits?
Currently now we're facilitating it all internal. We do have an in-house EFS that we are working with on it now too, brought him into the mix on it. And then also, he heads up our, ALR piece as far as life and retirement. Thank you.
Two more.
So I believe in what you're saying and I love that you break it down to the simplest form with your list, is if you could go back to the guy that started Scratch and tell him, because I started in September with barely any money and all of that kind of good stuff, what 5 things would you tell him? These are the things that you as the agent owner need to be solely focused on, and go back to your agency, start doing these things immediately.
Hold on, I'm
going to go write them down.
One of the biggest things that I found that help people really succeed and also cause people to fail is the same thing, and it's fear. Fear motivated the heck out of me. I looked at it like every day that I don't got time to focus on anything. I don't got time to complain. I got to pay the mortgage. I got to get it done because I had limited capital in my account, and I kept this fear and anxiety in me every day that drove the results. And what I see too common nowadays is it's the unknown. It's uncharted territory. Somebody's going in and starting a scratch agency, maybe new to the insurance business, new to being a business owner. And there's fear tied to that in a sense of being uncomfortable, which makes it difficult to just jump in the water. So what instead happens is people overanalyze, and we think, well, let me come up with this idea or search for this magic bullet or try to figure this out or listen to this and just come up with all the ideas and finally get analysis paralysis. And before you know it, 6 months and a year gone by, that scratch contracts flew by before your eyes, where we didn't necessarily focus on all the fundamental things that drove the result. The most important things I would say is really be an effective leader. It all starts with you, shadow of a leader, never deviating like that. We can't have bad days. Like, we can't come into our agency and show any other tone. It's impossible to hold a culture to a high standard if we're not personally willing to live that culture. I say the next thing is really all about the people. It's finding great people, engaged people, positive people that are hungry, that are willing to put the work forth. And just consistency, training, and coaching, and never stopping. Training, coaching, training, coaching, training, coaching, every single day. Because what I found is when we stop that and you become complacent, that's when a team member very easily can develop bad habits because they're not practicing things the right way, and they fall into something what I call the valley of despair. And, that's they could go from being a high performer and all of a sudden they don't even realize it. They develop a bad habit. They do it on the phone 21 days in a row. They just developed a bad culture, and they don't know what they don't know. They just think it's not working anymore, and they fall in that valley of despair where it could go one way. They could fight and crawl their way out, or you could lose a great team member, and that's where turnover comes in. So I found just constantly coaching, constantly aligning ourselves with our team members to make sure that we support each other's goals.
Amen. Last question.
Inspiring story. Thanks.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
I'm Dave Nedgley from Idaho, and we wrote some benefits last year. Got a taste for it. Really like it. Still trying to get my head wrapped around it, though. We work with a PBA. How do you, or how would you, in our situation? Because I know you said you actually set up your own PBA, right?
Yeah, we're getting officially approved this month on the PBA. We formed our own team, but yeah, we're running it ourselves now.
How do you pay your people, aside from the PBA? But like, how would we motivate and incent our staff on benefits?
What we did, it might not be the exact answer. It was new to us, so we had to come up with a comp plan. We asked some different people, what they did, and came up with what we thought was best. It may change down the road, but essentially, whoever gets the case out of one of our sales members / enrollers on the AWD side, they basically get an override on that entire case. So out of the total commission, there might be they get a third of the entire commission on what they enroll and the entire case. So they may be getting, 16.5% on the entire case. Everything they personally enroll, 16.5%. So they're getting a third of everything. If they're just going on a case, just enrolling, the deal's already been set up, and they're just showing up and enrolling people, then they're just getting that 16%. That might evolve over time, but that's what we came up with now. That's been effective for us, and it's still a learning experience as we go. Now that the challenge is keeping that pipeline full and figuring out the best prospecting methods that work the best for us.
Big hand for Dave. Great job, man.
Thank you, everybody. I appreciate it.
Good job.
Thank you.
Good job.
Appreciate it.